All right, I think we can start the event. So good morning, everyone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So my name is Regine, and I work for the Secretariat of the European Parliament Intergroup on Climate Change, Biodiversity and Sustainable Development. And I'm delighted to welcome you all today to discuss about the ESPR, the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation, which has a pivotal role in shaping the future, a sustainable future in Europe. So the ESPR was introduced in March 2022, lays down core sustainability requirements across all industries, driving us toward a future where sustainable products becomes the norm inside the European internal market. So today we gather here with an excellent set of speakers representing policymakers, NGOs, and industry representatives. And together we aim to explore the best practices when it comes to circularity and assess how these practices align with the ambitious goals of the European Green Deal. So in our discussion, we will revolve around the challenges, the opportunities, and the gaps when it comes to ESPR, and key concepts such as digital product passport, green public procurement, ban of destruction of unsold goods, and due diligence will be at the forefront of today's discussion. So thank you all for being here today, and I would like also to thank the speakers for joining us in the discussion, and I would also invite all participants in the room and online to also participate in the discussion during the Q&A session, which is located towards the end of the event. So for the participants in the room, feel free to raise your hand, and for those who are attending online, please feel free to enter your question in the chat box, and please remember to mention the speaker to whom your question is best addressed. So without further ado, I'd like to provide the floor to our host today, Ms. Maria Spiraki. Thank you very much for being here today. We know this morning was a hectic morning with some important votes in ENVI committee, so thank you very much for taking the time to be here with us.
Thank you very much, and I would like to thank you all for filling the room and for this participation. Allow me to say that it is a very difficult and busy day. First, we have votes in ENVI. Secondly, we have ENVI with ECA, so I would like to intervene on PFAS issue. I have also an obligation on Euroactive concerning the corridors, the hydrogen corridors, so it is very, very important for me to discuss the issue of ESPR, not only as a co-chair on the intergroup, but also as the rapporteur on behalf of the ITRE committee on this very, very important file. And I would like to say that it is important for me to understand that this kind of regulation is setting the next day on the core sustainability requirements across all industries, with the exception of food and pharma, of course. And integrated environmental considerations into all stages of a product's life is fundamental to size the next day of the EU, making it circular and minimizing the impact on the environment. And in this context, it is important for all of us, the stakeholders involved, including the industry, NGOs and policymakers, to take the time to look into products which are less harmful to the environment by optimizing products design and circularity in the light of the new regulation, which will be voted in plenary next July. So time is coming, and I think that we will have a very good result with a vast majority. We achieve it in the ITRE committee, and we are waiting for the outcome in the plenary. And the proposal for the new eco-design for sustainable products regulation, it is, in my opinion, the cornerstone of the Commission's approach to more environmental, sustainable and circular products. And I would like to present very briefly why I believe and I strongly support this kind of regulation, not only under my capacity as rapporteur, but also as a person understanding the trends in the market and understanding the reason that sustainable economy and also circular economy are key parameters in order to fulfill the targets of our Green Deal. It is the very unique opportunity to shift from the linear economy to the circular model, contributed drastically on the transition economy model in the EU. And the most important is because beyond products, also the business model that deliver them play a very critical role. Rather than simply launching a new product which can improve material and energy efficiency, as it is in the case in the linear economy, moving to a circular business model requires a complete integration of circular design as well as collection and redistribution infrastructure. So this is the new model we have to follow, and this is the way we pave the way in order to transform our economy from linear to circular. And the ESPR regulation is important because I think it is one of the two key pieces of legislation that we have to implement. And I would like to state in that discussion once again that first we need all the necessary requirements for adoption from SMEs and industry. I focus on SMEs because SMEs are facing a lot of difficulties and burdens, and it is important to facilitate them and giving them the proper time. Secondly, we have to get advantage on the transition period, safeguarding that the implementation will be to improve products, circularity, energy performance, and other environmental sustainability aspect. So time is one of the key parameters in this regard, and I think that there is no way to lose any further time. Of course, we all agree that this key legislation is aiming to have more durable, reusable, repairable, upgradable, recyclable, and generally less harmful products to the environment. And as I have already said, it is time that we have to fight for. We have tried many provisions in the ITRE committee's opinion, on which I had the honor and the responsibility to have the rapporteurship, to safeguard the SME's position, explaining to the rest of the colleagues that we have to be realistically implementable with the workload and the resources of the SMEs can afford. And we tried a lot to explain the added value of incorporating renewability. Renewability, it is the idea of an eco-designed parliament, and we believe that in this regard, we are paving the way into a more circular approach, and it is an achievement coming from ITRE committee. Secondly, we addressed the need for communication from the suppliers to manufacturers on all aspects related to the digital product passport. It is also a key parameter of this, with clear and efficient digital labelers, as companies can encounter many difficulties when trying to get information for upstream suppliers. And these are the two main parameters that we include in our position from the ITRE committee in the framework of our remit. Allow me to emphasize also on the circularity and how this kind of approach will affect finally the next day in the European market. First, we need to understand that we have to take the advantage by having and inserting circularity to our business model. And therefore, the aim should focus on the creation of a discussion on sustainable industries based on examples of European businesses who have operated innovative green industrial transformation with a clear view now to the ESPR, to the Eco-Design Sustainable Product Regulation, which has been revised and will be in the trialogue after July. There are several examples, and I would like just to mention only two on the issue of how can we proceed with the circularity by adapting circular models. I would like just to recall you that we have also one company which is a company for floors, which has already adopted a new model of circular economy, and it is easy to say that this new company is now taking the advantage of the products that they have been reused. It is the interface, and it is a company who is minimizing waste and maximizing resource efficiency by design products for longevity, repairability, and recyclability. It is a global flooring manufacturer, and also the interface using recycling materials in their products and offering take-back products to recycle old flooring. So I think it is one of the examples that maybe we can follow. And also another one, which is a company which is now involving in transportation. It is companies like Lyft and Uber who have started incorporating electric vehicles into their ride-sharing fleets and also reducing emissions from traditional gasoline-powered cars. And additionally, innovative transportation models like the car sharing we have in Brussels as well, and bike sharing programs we have in Brussels as well, contribute to reduce the numbers of private vehicles on the road. These examples can illustrate how industries can adapt progressive, innovative, and sustainable models to contribute to a net zero future and mitigate climate change. I would like to conclude by saying that there is another very, very important piece of legislation which is working complementary with the eco-design sustainable product regulation, and it is the regulation concerning the packaging and packaging waste. These are the parameters which are complementary in both regulations. The first one is the product design consideration. As we all know, in ESPR, we focus on design stage of products aiming to improve their environmental performance, energy efficiency, and resource efficiency. And we set the requirements for factors such as repairability, recyclability, and durability. Both regulations, the ESPR and also the packaging and packaging waste regulation, emphasize the importance of considering the environmental aspects in products, ensuring design that products and their packaging are more sustainable and contribute to a circular economy. The second parameter is the material choices for recycling. It is also ESPR which encourages the use of recyclable materials and set requirements for recycled materials, but also how this aligns with the objectives of the packaging and packaging waste regulation, which promotes the recycling and recovery of packaging waste. Third, it is the extended producer responsibility, which is the schemes that the packaging and packaging waste regulation establish the principle of extended producer responsibility schemes, but also ESPR complements this principle by encouraging products design that facilitate recycling and repairing and enabling producers to fulfill their extended producer responsibility obligations effectively. And fourth, it is the circular economy objectives, with both pieces of legislation are serving. I would like to conclude by saying this. Regulations are tightening. It is very, very obvious, and I think it is important to understand that we are trying to address the needs of the consumer and the needs of the environment. But at the same time, companies must demonstrate that they are aware of sustainable development issues and apply environmental standards and act responsible. And this is my key message. Stakeholders are demanding more environmental, social, and governance commitments, and the implementation of concepts such as corporate social responsibility. So now it is the time for all of us. It is the time for business, it is the time for government, it is the time for policymakers, but it is also the time for society to collaborate to transform the global economy for the benefits of all, and starting with the European economy. Thank you very much once again for being here with us. And I will remain at your disposal for the next 30 minutes because you know that my timetable today is very, very strict. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Spiraki. Thank you for making the time to be here today and for setting the scene for today's event, and also for your important role and commitment when it comes to this file, and for this crucial role it really has for shaping a sustainable future in Europe. So moving on with the agenda of the event, I would like now to present the speakers of today's panel discussion. So today we have with us William Nail, Advisor for Circular Economy at Directorate B on Circular Economy at DG Environment at the European Commission. We have Cameron McKinnon, Head of Sustainability at Innocent Drinks. Joining us online, we have Stefan Arditi, Director for Climate, Circular Economy and Industry, IEB, the European Environmental Bureau. We have Anna Papagregoraki, Sustainability Director at CEPI. We have George Karkampassis, Senior Manager, Regulatory Affairs, Circular Economy and Raw Materials at European Aluminium. And we have Jean-Benoît Bell, Senior Project Manager at the Association of Cities and Regions for Sustainable Resource Management, ACR+. So thank you all for being here today and for joining this important discussion. And I would like now to start with the first question addressed to all speakers, which is, why is the eco-design for sustainable products regulation, the ESPR, important for your organization? So just following the same order of the agenda, I would like to provide the floor to William Nail.
Thank you, Irene. Madam Spiriaki was mentioning some extremely good examples of circular businesses, and I think what is really significant about the eco-design approach is that we're saying that sustainable products should be the norm. So in order to be put on the market, they have to fulfill those requirements. So it's really quite a powerful instrument. And we will also, at the same time, be helping some of those top runners through taxonomy, including, as you'll see from the latest taxonomy requirements, ones which are horizontal for circular businesses in no matter which sector they're operating in. But I think the historical significance is quite great, because if you look at environment policy, it was built from the 1970s on a reaction to accidents and catastrophes. It was based on punishing polluters, on setting limits. And it wasn't until 1986 that environment was in the treaties. It wasn't until 1992 that sustainable development was put in the treaties. And then in about 2012, 2014, we had the European Resource Efficiency Platform, including 4 MEPs, that actually started talking about using eco-design and using a digital product passport. And here we are, the European Green Deal has sort of opened the window for these to happen. And we've been very busy, and I apologise that we're keeping you also very busy with the legislative agenda now. But it is very significant that we use the single market to ensure that products are designed in sustainable ways, because we say that design really defines 80% of the life cycle impact of a product, and those impacts are very great. And the scope that we're talking about, I mean, the scope of the existing Eco-Design Directive was covering about 14% of the climate impact of products. Here we're talking about a further 49%, so we estimate that about 65% of climate emissions are covered in the scope of the Eco-Design regulation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, William, for your intervention, also providing some insights about the historical development that brought us today to discuss about ESPR. So thank you very much. So I would like now to provide the floor to Kamer.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me this morning. Just for those who aren't aware of Innocent Drinks, we were founded back in 1999. Our core business is juice and smoothies, and we operate in 18 markets across Europe. The ESPR requirements actually align quite well with Innocent sustainability view, in the sense that it incorporates all life cycle analysis part and the life cycle of a product. So at Innocent, for a long time, we've been sourcing sustainable fruit and veg for our products and promoting fair trade practices and supporting local farmers in their communities. We're really aligned with the digital passport aspect of the ESPR. It provides the supply chain transparency that is needed for the supply chain itself, but also regulators and consumers to make informed choices. We've been measuring our carbon footprint and environmental footprint of our products for a long time. We've got a science-based target already in place as a challenge to decarbonise our business, but we've got targets and measures to get there. And we're really encouraged to see that the intentions of the ESPR are to make sustainable products norm within the market. And circularity is also very key at Innocent. So we are pressing forward with opportunities to reduce packaging waste and improve the recyclability of our products. We use recycled and plant-based materials in our portfolio, and we use the aspects of the PPWR that are already in place for design on recyclability to design our packaging. We look to lightweight our packaging wherever possible, and have got ongoing commitments moving forward. And Innocent supports DRS. It's a very key part of the PPWR as well. And our preference is to have the priority to the material, because the reality of the situation in the market right now is that our PET and a food grade level is just not available at a scale that is needed for the whole juice market. And encouraging reuse. So, I mean, I think this would be the biggest challenge that's under the PPWR at the moment, is that to ensure the safety of our juice and smoothies, the reuse supply chain just kind of doesn't exist at the moment. So we really need to kind of collaborate in the industry to find solutions moving towards 2030 on those reuse targets and goals, which are going to be quite challenging for the juice sector. And the final thing I would like to say on this point is that the whole kind of life cycle approach to our products was a key driver to actually becoming a manufacturer ourselves. So we've consolidated our supply chain around one factory, which has made it much easier.
Thank you very much, Cameron, for presenting the work of Innocent Drinks and also to show how companies contribute to Europe's circular economy targets. So moving on, I would like to provide the floor to Stefan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stefan Arditi. I work for the European Environmental Bureau, and this is an umbrella organization gathering together green NGOs all over Europe. I really like to thank EBCD and also ESPR for organizing such an event. Well, I would start to say that ESPR is not so important for organization with regard how important it is for all European citizens. Really, if we think about the past eco-design on which the ESPR is now building on, it is really the question of expanding and intensifying a success story. Success story because it provided saving for consumer on their energy bill. It provided savings for the environment, notably contributing for half of the energy efficiency target by 2020 that we had set to ourselves. It provided additional revenue opportunity for businesses, and it also created job opportunity. So in a way, I think it's very important to ally this policy as the proof that we should get rid of the obsolete thinking, opposing environmental legislation and economic prosperity. And I think really the ESPR is the way also to guarantee the access of sustainable product to all by making it a norm in the future. More specifically for our organization, I think the ESPR is fundamental to progress several priorities of the EU Green Deal, not only on circular economy. As William Neal said, 65% of the climate impact can be covered by the scope of eco-design, notably if we address these intermediate products such as steel, aluminum, and cement is a controversial case, but it's also one of the main products that could deserve to be addressed through this eco-design approach. And it's also a key opportunity to have a very good and quality debate between different stakeholders, from industry, including SMEs, from civil society organizations, and of course the European Commission services. So it also proves that by entering a healthy dialogue, we can really progress on something and make a difference. And I think I insist on that. Too often today, there are voices that try to oversimplify things and try to play the environmental case against the economic or the competitiveness of industry. And I'm sorry to say, I think they are completely wrong, and that if they do not remediate this bad narrative, it may be bad for all European citizens. So exactly the contrary of what has been proven through past eco-design. And I will finish with this, and I'm really looking forward to the debate on the contents of this file. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Thank you also for highlighting the challenges and opportunities surrounding the ESPR. Moving on, I would like to provide the floor to Anna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Bagrigouraki. I work for the European pulp and paper industry, and we represent not just paper, actually. And that's something I would like to pinpoint. The reason why we're here is because, well, on the one hand, as you understand, paper is a packaging material, but it's not. But wood fibers produce a plethora of bio-based products that fall under the scope of the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation, including textiles, just to give you one example. But then there are others. And of course, you have different types of paper, such as graphic paper, tissue paper, hygiene paper, and that also falls under the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation. So this has been said by previous speakers, and it is, including Mrs. Spiraki, is a regulation that we consider a cornerstone for making sustainable products the norm. And it is also an opportunity when you have got a track record in sustainability, and you have also been carefully measuring the environmental performance of your products with clear data, to actually prove that you can meet the sustainability credentials. I think, and that's why I really like Stefan's point, that oversimplification is actually a way of that could actually turn ESPR upside down and not make it work. ESPR is a very important tool. If I was provocative today, I would even call it a weapon to actually make European sustainable products competitive vis-a-vis imported products. Because as you know, it applies to both imported products and EU-grown products. And it all starts with the raw material. It all comes with the sustainable sourcing. So in the case of wood fibers, PEFC and FSC certification is something that we strongly have as proof that that from a sourcing point we are sustainable. And then you come into the process of it. You come into the decarbonization technologies. You come into the energy efficiency. You come into the fact that our environmental performance is documented, and we have also heavily invested in the product environmental footprint, because that is also linked with the life cycle assessment of a product. And in the case of the life cycle assessment, one must not omit the end of life of a product, including if it goes to waste. So waste prevention is linked to life cycle assessment, but also recycling. So there we see an interface not only with the packaging and packaging waste regulation, but also with the green claims legislative proposal. This has been, we've been following the negotiations very closely, and we feel that the result in ENVI committee was at a very acceptable level. It was very important that renewability was also put in the product parameters. But at the same time, when I come back to the point of oversimplification, we should not treat all sectors and all intermediate materials in the same way. So renewability is written where it says where relevant. So it might not work for the sectors represented by one of the colleagues, it might not even be relevant, but it's definitely relevant for bio-based products. And it also links with the taxonomy regulation in that way. One thing we would like to throw as a word of caution is that one must be very careful when they design their product. As mentioned before, 80% of the environmental impacts come from the design of the product. But recycled content needs to be approached with care. It makes sense for markets that need to be developed. It may not make sense for markets that are already well developed. And we also have the discussions in the packaging waste regulation, where obligatory recycled content may not make sense for certain types of applications, including food contact. We see a link with food contact materials as well. Other than that, I would say that we will certainly use ESPR as an opportunity, but we would be very interested to know how the prioritization list that was adopted in the ENVI committee will play a role, and how intermediate products could also be rewarded for their sustainability performance under the secondary legislation. So sometimes I also have questions in that way, rather than just reactions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you for your insights and for providing information about, as well also linkages between different EU policies when it comes to ESPR, green claims. We're mentioning different files actually discussed inside the European Parliament. So thank you very much for that. And I would like now to provide the floor to George.
Thank you. And good morning from my side also. And thank you very much for the kind invite and your hard work in the Parliament on ESPR, and also to the Commission for presenting such an important proposal. I represent today European Aluminium, and within our membership we cover the full aluminium value chain in Europe, meaning from the production of primary to semi-manufacturing intermediate products and all the way to recycling. And as such, aluminium is very well placed within the circular economy. It's a material that can be recycled multiple times without losing its inherent properties. And also, it makes a lot of sense to recycle aluminium because it saves 95% of the energy needed when you compare it to the production of primary aluminium. So there are obviously improvements on the carbon footprint here of the final products in turn. When we saw the ESPR, we were very happy to see finally a proposal that changes the pace, so to speak, from the waste phase that we were stuck for many years discussing to the design phase. The previous speakers, and it's well known for a long time, we all mentioned that you can address a lot of environmental externalities during the design phase. And in that respect, we see that the benefits extend throughout the life cycle of a product all the way to the end of life, where you can recover better quality secondary raw materials and increase the quality of recycling and even go to as closed loop as possible for some products. And we consider the ESPR to be the central tool to develop a faster transition to a circular, resource efficient, and carbon neutral economy. At this stage, also, given that we were also one of the product categories that were being assessed under the product consultation of the GRC and the Commission, we were very happy to see that aluminium is being scrutinized because we see that we have a lot of good practices, and we see that the development of the ESPR alongside with the digital product passport can have a better information flow throughout the value chain, and it can highlight a lot of the benefits, but also we can see where we can make incremental changes where needed. And finally, I will have also to agree with the previous speakers that oversimplification here is not an option. We need to go to a great detail and a plethora of different considerations to make sure that whatever is designed, it makes sense to support the sustainable growth of the European industry and maintain the integrity of the single market so the transition is at equal speed across the different member states. Thank you.
Thank you very much, George, and thank you also for bringing forward the best practices of European aluminium. So I would like now to provide the floor to Jean-Benoît.
Hi, hello everyone. Well, I represent ACR Plus. We are an association of cities and regions trying to go towards circular economy. And well, we've got a wide variety of members. Some of them are big regions that can actually support local companies, SMEs for eco-design. But for the most part, our members have little little possibilities to act on eco-design, but they're really impacted by the lack of eco-design. And maybe a good illustration is the fact that cities and regions deal with waste, and they're still it's seen as a solution to close the loop, but we end up with many products that can't really be treated in a satisfying way. There's lots of technical parameters hindering the recycling processes. And maybe as an illustration, we've been supporting some of our members with the link between waste and circular economy and climate change through a campaign. So we've been supported by our member, the Waste Scotland, that provided a tool to assess the impact of the carbon footprint of municipal waste. And not only the impact of the end of life, but also the embodied impact in waste, meaning that we have been looking at how much carbon emission we're throwing away when we produce waste. So all the carbon emission that were emitted during production and extraction of resources. And what we found out that with all of our members that we supported with this is that the impact of the end of life is really insignificant compared to all the impact from the upstream processes. Meaning that we can try to recycle as much as we can. It won't compensate for what we are throwing away. And so at the end, we all say to our members, well, you have to prevent waste and you have to maximize reuse and high quality recycling, but then they can do that for food, for instance. You can have food waste policies, but for many products, such as textiles, we've got actually you're getting what you get and you can't really make much out of it. And I think textile is a good illustration. There will be a sorting obligation in the coming years. And right now, the business model of used textile is reuse for the most part. So most of the value is in the top quality that you can get, and this quality is decreasing. And the other alternatives are export, which is questionable, and then recycling is really limited to downcycling. There's some innovation, but right now the possibilities are really blocked by the lack of eco-design. So we will, of course, implement the sorting obligation, but if we don't improve the eco-design of textile, it won't make much sense economically, but also in terms of climate change. So for us, this is really a very important piece of regulation. Maybe one last point, and after I will give back the floor. Our members are pretty much in connection with citizens, with consumers, and we're putting more and more pressure on consumers to behave better for the environment. And we see some kind of opposition because they have the feeling that they can't do much, and they are the only one getting asked to do something when they see that the product they have is less and less durable, that they've got more and more packaging. So I think it's also a positive signal to send to consumers to say that everyone is making an effort, and for citizen regions, it will be easier to engage local stakeholders and consumers and citizens if we can show that everyone is doing an effort to make the society more circular.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jean-Benoît, for your presentation and for also bringing the discussion more at the local level, presenting some challenges and opportunities when it comes to cities and regions. So continuing with the panel discussion, I would like to go back with another question to Mr. William Nail, representing the European Commission.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Bye-bye.
So the question for William, it's how does ESPR align with the overall objective and targets of the European Green Deal in promoting circular economy? And on top of that, what are the core sustainability requirements like that set by the ESPR across industries, and how do they contribute to make sustainable products the norms inside the European internal markets?
Thanks very much, Regine. I think we have to understand that circular economy isn't an aim in itself. It's not an end in itself. We didn't suddenly decide linear is bad, we're going to go circular. It's really all about delivering on climate, about delivering on biodiversity, but also delivering competitiveness through efficiency and through opportunities for business. So it's delivering on many of the other parts of the Green Deal and also on the competitiveness agenda. Why? Because it's all about resource use. I mean, our resource footprint, our material footprint in Europe is getting worse. I think it's about 6.5 billion tons per year at the moment, which is up 5% from 5 years before. And as we hear very often quoted in these meetings, 90% of biodiversity loss is driven by extraction and processing of materials, and 50% of greenhouse gas emissions. So we need to deal with that. We need to reduce the amount of virgin materials we're using. An extremely important part of that, as we've just heard, is in the use phase before it gets to waste. What you don't waste, you don't have to replace, which means you don't have to extract and process and manufacture from virgin materials again. So it's not just about driving up recycling, it's really about prolonging product life. And as I said before, the impact is so much defined at the design stage. And by using a single market tool, we're really sort of harnessing the collective consumer power of 450 million consumers for products that, like you said, that are coming from around the world. So we're still keeping this level playing field. I want to say something about oversimplification, because usually the Commission is accused, or we hear pleas for simplification, and now we're saying don't oversimplify. And I think that the way this will be achieved, which is also rather answering your question, is through the delegated acts. We're talking about a framework regulation which should provide a very clear signal of the direction that we're going in and a lot of the ways that things will work. But then, of course, we are going product group by product group because the kind of requirements that are relevant for one are not appropriate for another. That process is very inclusive. We're not talking about bureaucrats designing products. We're talking about a process for each product group of consultation, of impact assessment, to make sure that the approaches are tailored, that they will actually be workable and effective. And as I said, the idea is not that bureaucrats will be designing products. If you look at most products, most consumer products, the reasons for failure are usually 2 or 3 as a big majority. So if you take a washing machine, for example, it's the bearings and it's the electronics. So if you're able to focus on those 2 things, you could vastly prolong the average life of a washing machine, say by having standards for the bearings, by having electronics that are where the codes are understood by local repair shops, and where they can be easily removed. Also, if you can easily remove the electronics from a washing machine, when it is thrown in the shredder at the end of its life, the electronics can be taken out so you don't get the copper contamination, which is a big issue for the quality of steel recyclates. So I think copper is also a big issue in aluminium as well, in terms of contamination being very difficult to deal with. If you can increase that purity, then you increase the retained value of those materials, and so you make it far more viable. Those materials can be used more effectively after that. One part, I think, the physical requirements under eco-design are one part of the picture. I think what is most groundbreaking is really the idea of having data requirements, of having a digital product passport. I think the difference here is that it is something which you're not only doing at the moment that it's put on the market, it's really something which will also follow a product through its whole life cycle. So the idea is to, the idea of physical requirements is to take the worst off the market. It's what behavioural economists and retailers would call choice editing. You say, okay, you're not allowed to buy that, it's not allowed on the market. With data requirements, we're talking about an enabler. We're talking about requirements in terms of the physical requirement will be to have a data carrier on the product, and then the data requirement will be to make data accessible via that scannable tag in a decentralized way. And here we're not talking about, it's not because the Commission wants to have lots of data on products. It's really what I call data for action, not data for knowledge. It's really about enabling value retention along the value chain. It's a lot about, I expect the biggest use to be in business to business, about being able to bridge some of the split incentives that mean that value isn't got back from products later on, because there's not so much incentive for somebody putting a product on the market to do it in a certain way, or to provide the data which would make that easy to do further down the chain. It also will hopefully reduce a lot of friction costs by having better data in the markets. It'll enable a lot of those value retention actions further down the chain, whether it's during the use phase or at the waste phase, and also optimizing products during the use phase to make sure that they're used more intensively. So digital product passports already exist. They're already happening. There are very many. I think, did you say that you're already tracking and tracing your products? There are about 70 that we've identified, different private models. Here we're talking about something which will open it up with open systems, common architecture, standards and so on, which should really vastly open the opportunities for those kinds of approaches. I'll finish there.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your expertise on circular economy, and also for your consideration into the work of the European Commission in optimizing product design and of course circularity. So moving on in the panel, I would like to ask a question to Cameron. mostly talking about the innovation and best practices when it comes to Innocent Drinks. I know Innocent Drinks has opened a factory in Rotterdam, which has packed up with great technologies linked, trying to make it the first carbon neutral and all-electric drinks factories. So I would like to ask you, what are the key innovative approaches and best practices that the Institute has implemented so far in this regard?
Sure. So our blender, which we call our factory, opened in 2021, but it was really years in the making, and we had a key design challenge around the factory to provide both heating and cooling that we need to make our products, but only using renewable energy instead of steam, etc. So the site runs on a fully electric heat pump and has a vast energy management system. But the three key design challenges we had was reducing the need for steam. So the engineers and all of the stakeholders involved were able to pasteurize our raw materials at a lower temperature, reducing and completely eliminating the need for steam, but also making it as energy efficient as possible. The second key design challenge was to reduce cooling demand across site. And the project team were able to reduce the cooling demand across the site by 50% compared to a business as usual factory. And the third kind of key design challenge was to make sure that we use heat as a valuable resource. So we keep heat in a closed-loop system. We transfer heat to provide different services across our factory at temperatures that are required. So, for example, you need a higher temperature to pasteurize our raw materials versus a lower temperature to melt drums that have ingredients in, or space heating. So those three things combined meant that we could power our factory fully on electricity. At the moment, we have about 6 to 10% of on-site renewables using solar panels. At the moment, we then purchase the rest on off-site wind. And the future intention is to have wind turbines on site, which will contribute to the full energy load of the factory. So we really feel that this contributes to the ER Power EU's goal of ending, dependence on fossil fuels. And there's quite a best case kind of a case study of a way that a food factory can work. And we're one of the few factories in the world to have the BREEAM outstanding certification as well. So we've got that external validation as well. The factory consolidates our supply chain. We've moved away from co-packers to make our products as a manufacturer ourselves, and that's resulted in taking a lot of road miles off the road as well. So there's logistical efficiencies there as well. So we estimate that by the end of 2028, we will eliminate 2.8 million road miles per year. So we have made a big logistical efficiency as well. We also use e-trucks. So our biggest product, the orange juice, takes our oranges from the Port of Rotterdam, takes it to our factory, and as the e-truck is unloading the orange juice, it is charged back up again, and the thing is returned. But we've also not just looked at energy, we've also looked at water on site. So we use compressed air, again, using fully renewable energy, air cleaning system, therefore reducing the need for water on site. And waste is another key consideration as well. So we transport pre-molds to our sites and then blow bottles on site to reduce the amount of wastage and road miles that come along with that. And we have also reduced the amount of packaging that's needed for our raw materials as well. So we've tried to look at every single environmental aspect of our factory. And for example, even we've got, rainwater harvesting to service the toilets, and we've got electric charging points outside of the factory. So we've tried to look at every single environmental aspect. But it's been a real long journey and it's been a challenge. So what I would say is when you're in the design phase is that the partnership and the collaboration has kind of been crucial in this area. And what we're doing here at Innocent is we're writing a white paper at the moment to demonstrate all of the design challenges, but the progress that we have made. And we will be publishing that out because it's a real need for the green transition that we all need to have a new benchmark of how we make food and drink in renewable settings.
Thank you very much, Cameron. And also thank you for bringing forward the example of innocent drinks as one of the best practice of industrial innovation in the beverage industry, and also for highlighting how companies can contribute to Europe's circular economy journey. So thank you very much for that. I'm a bit cautious of time because I see we are 12:10 and we need to finish the event at 12:30 sharp because the room is booked afterwards. So I would like to kindly ask the following speakers to be a tiny bit briefer in their following statements. So coming to Stefan, joining us online. So taking account the report that EB has released concerning the regulatory gaps when it comes to ESPR and the online retail sector, where we had the chance already to organize an event together, I would like to ask you, taking into consideration your perspective, what are the significant opportunities and gaps within the ESPR that require attention and action to fully realize its potential in achieving the objectives of the European Green Deal?
Thank you, Regine, for the question. I'll try to be quick. I'd like first to start by thanking the ENVI committee for their vote on the 15th of June, which I think really paved the way for an ambitious negotiation with the Council. And we hope that the EAT committee and also in plenary there'll be the same support for the provision. In terms of opportunities in this fight, I think one thing we see that has evolved with the discussion of the European Parliament is first the idea of having guidance to set the future delegated acts or the regulation for specific product at the right level. Because if we do not have anything to quantify where we want to go, then we cannot set the right level of stringency. And for this, the reference to the EU objective in the Green Deal or the planet boundaries are really a key opportunity. Second example of opportunity is also a clear definition of what is a substance of concern and using the digital product passport to convey information about chemicals in product. And I think it really makes sense to concentrate all the information on chemicals under the digital product passport and not necessarily oppose, safety requirement to circularity requirement, at least when it comes to information disclosure, so that we don't multiply the number of, I would say, medium to convey such an information, knowing that the digital product passport will build on existing database. There is also a clear opportunity to facilitate repair. There is something very fundamental and building on no time to waste by Ms. Biryaki is the call for an immediate ban on destruction of textile, unsold textile and electronics. We do not see why we need more time and why we need a delegated act and an impact assessment to see if it could make sense to destroy perfectly functioning product. I mean, this is for me a total nonsense to postpone any decision on this. And there is also a very good hint toward more consistency between the different product policy instruments, notably the link between the minimum requirement and the green public procurement criteria. Of course, there are also gaps we've identified. One of the first, for us, fundamental gaps is staying silent on social dimension. And we think that if we stay silent on social dimension, do not take the opportunity when we study a product to also highlight what could be the social impact through social life cycle assessment tools or other approach. We may create a conflict between environmental and social progress, and I think it will be counterproductive. The second thing, and this one is has been mentioned by Regine, is the risk of the loophole for product entering the market through online market sales. And we don't understand why we don't close this loophole and make very clear that either there is a liable importer, distributor, or representative of the company, or the online market sales platform should be responsible for the compliance of product. It's too easy to introduce non-compliant product that will distort the competition with product that try to respect the norms through online market sales, and if we don't make them responsible. And then there is another risk that I'd like to highlight is the fact that if we do not consider this horizontal requirement, so the idea of being able to set some rules for, I would say, a group of products that can have some similar patterns in terms of resource consumption, for example, we may miss an opportunity. And this is very clear with a lot of ICD products, which individually, like for example, a network base station or something like this, may not have the significance to be treated as a specific product. But if you group them with other type of ICT product, they represent a huge potential. And that's why we also think that we should not lose the opportunity of prioritizing, a pool of products that can be solely regulated or at least investigated by the eco-design. And I'd like to finish on the resource aspect. This file has been called, I think, by Ms. Kyriaki as a cornerstone. We all know it's fundamental, and repeat, it delivers 50% of our EU 2020 target in terms of energy efficiency. But if we do not provide enough resources within the European Commission to really analyze, listen to the stakeholders, if we do not provide enough resources at national level, and please have a check in your own country, all the people listening to this call, but very often the eco-design discussion is not even reflected in your national agenda. Even national parliament are not aware about the position taken in Brussels on this file when it concerns all the citizens. So there is a need for highlighting and raising the profile of this policy because it impacts all of us on a daily basis, and it has delivered benefits in terms of saving. So we really need to have resources at national level. And finally, I would also like to call some resource to maintain the good discussion we had so far, which is supporting civil society organization and SMEs so that they can also take part to the debate. And I will finish there. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Stefan, for your contribution, for your emphasis on the challenges and opportunities surrounding the ESPR. I would like now to provide the floor back to Anna. So before you were mentioning about the interlinkages between the ESPR and other EU policies areas, so I would like to ask you, how does the ESPR align and interact with other EU legislation, such as the packaging and packaging waste regulation? And in what ways do this regulation complement each other in promoting sustainable product design, circularity, and waste reduction inside the European Union?
I knew this was going to be a complex question, so I already provided some input in the start of my speech. Okay, so packaging and packaging waste regulation. At the moment, the objectives are that all packaging has to be reusable or recyclable by 2030. It's also about getting rid of unnecessary, what is deemed unnecessary packaging. It's lex specialis, and so is the ESPR. One is about making sustainable products the norm, but actually ESPR, so packaging is not a separate category under ESPR. From what I understand, that was done on purpose because packaging would be covered under the packaging and packaging waste regulation. However, a product is not just the content, it's not just about what is, how can I say it? A product has components. And packaging is part of a component of a product. So if you take something like a textile, it can come in packaging. If you take something as a mobile phone, a washing machine, it also comes in packaging, often transport packaging. So in order for a product to be placed on the market under the ESPR, it has to come with a product passport. Otherwise, the product cannot be placed on the market. There is the option to actually include this tracker on the packaging of the product. So there, when it comes to the information that would be on the digital product passport, it would also, from what I've understood, it would also include information about every component. So not only the environmental performance of the product, but also its components, which includes the packaging. So suddenly you find that the packaging becomes very relevant in ESPR, and it links with the packaging and packaging waste regulation in the way that the parameters, such as recyclability, recycled content, also the choice of packaging would actually become relevant, because the information on the performance, on the origin, and on the sourcing of the packaging could also make the trader, or the one who is, the producer of the product, say, hang on a second, which packaging should I choose, which is better, that will make my product more sustainable? So suddenly you see that packaging is and packaging waste regulation comes in. And then you have the common nuances mentioned by Mrs. Spirac on recycled content and recyclability, and how to calculate these, and also how to enable high quality recycling. These are also elements that are cross-cutting between packaging waste regulation, and not forgetting reusability as well. That's another thing we see.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you for reminding us about the importance of the interlinkages between different EU policies. So moving on to the next speaker, so George. In the context of the ESPR, so how can the aluminium industry optimize product design and circularity to minimize its environmental impact and contribute to the goals of the European Green Deal? And are there any specific sustainability requirements set by the ESPR that may influence the industry's practices? I would like to kindly ask you to answer the question in maybe 2 minutes. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll try. Okay, as I mentioned before, recycling is nothing new for our sector, and because of the obvious environmental benefits. What our sector is doing, and many of our members are in a constant and continuous dialogue with downstream OEMs to make sure they can help them improve the design of the final products as much as possible. And this is whether somebody might ask to increase the amount of recycled content, or deliver an alloy that it's durable enough to increase the life cycle of a product, or the alloy will be soft enough to be easily dismantled so you can have better repairability. This is something that it's been discussed for a long time, and it's will continue to be discussed. And I think the SPR, what it can do here, it can amplify the benefits and extend them to companies that perhaps do not really have the resources to engage constructively in such discussions. Specific requirements, well, the devil is in the details, so we will need to look at the very specific requirements to see where the necessary sustainability trade-offs will be and where we will need to do improvements. But I think the requirement that it will help the full value chain upstream and downstream will be that of reporting and that of the digital product passport. I really think this will be a game changer. I think it will improve first of all, the quality of recycling at the end of life, but also help improve the design of products from a B2B perspective. And also I think it would even help to an extent to switch the mentality of the part of the citizens that they still consider end of life as wastes. Talking about requirements, just a side note, which is also important, we mentioned product-specific legislation. We see that it's easy to assess sustainability at the final product level because you can have the full life cycle and be aware of the final material destiny. So this should be taken into account. We have the Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive that has a lot of sustainability requirements. A good example, we have construction product regulation. We have a lot of product regulations. So the SPR should come in and cover the gaps where these product legislations are not there today. So this will make sense, and for that perspective, it makes sense to elaborate further at the material level through intermediate products.
Thank you very much. And moving on directly to Jean-Benoit. So in the context of the ESPR, what are the key challenges faced by cities and regions in implementing sustainability requirements and promoting circular practices within their jurisdictions? And how can local governments collaborate with other stakeholders to overcome these challenges and, of course, ensure effective implementation of the regulations?
Yes, I'll try to be very short. I think I addressed some of the challenges. I think one key challenge is about knowledge. Like, it's difficult to know what is circular. Like, it seems to be very difficult for the people directly involved in them, but when you're only the consumer or the end user, it's even more complicated. So whenever we should also have this opportunity to make it easier for consumers to understand what is more circular. We know that there's many trade-offs, there's many counterintuitive things that we have to consider. And I guess that when it comes to help with the implementation, I mentioned the support to local SMEs. This is something that our members are doing in many cities and regions, trying to support our businesses, but it's also difficult to find the right criteria to understand what we should support. And then it's complicated to have sustainable business because they're clashing with a linear business model. But one very obvious link is with public procurement. I think we need to address that at the end. Like green public procurement and circular public procurement is really something that is taking off, but it's very challenging to change that. There's lots of habits. There's little knowledge on what is circular, and sometimes there's little offer. Like, you have very good criteria, but you can't find any satisfying offer. So obviously, I think like we should take this opportunity also to streamline green public procurement, to use all the work done here to make it accessible to the public buyers and make sure that we avoid greenwashing and fake solution, and that also the local and regional authorities can support this transition with their, let's say, power of purchase, if you can say that. So yeah, just to be very short.
Thank you very much, Jean-Benoit, and thank you for also bringing the focus on the local and regional efforts in implementing circular economy. So we now have very short time for Q&As. I see there are no questions online, so I would like to invite the participants in the room. If there is any burning question, we might take just one. Yes, please. If you can also introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. Christoph Sykes from Construction Products Europe. Anna mentioned the ESPR as a tool, a weapon to promote EU products versus imports. Stéphane gave some examples of issues linked to the national authorities. The one concept that's not been mentioned is market surveillance. We have products on the market today imported with CE marking, which are fake. And when we alert the authorities, they lack the power, the resources to act. So coming back to EEB and maybe ACR, do you have any recommendations because having great dreams are fine, but if nobody actually sheriffs the area, then we might have issues later on that we already see today. Thank you.
Stéphane or Jean-Benoit, anyone else want to take the question?
Maybe I can start, Jean-Benoit can continue. Thank you very much for raising this question of enforcement. This is a very crucial one. And together with various industry, the EB is trying to have again a joint paper, as we had on the loophole through online sales, to call the Council to be serious on enforcement, because we are very scared that the Council position is watering down some of the provision proposed by the European Commission to ensure a proper market surveillance. But I'd like to come back to the issue of online sales. online sales are growing. I mean, they've been multiplied by at least 3 in the last 10 years. Okay, and these trends will continue. So if we do not address first the responsibility of online sales to introduce non-compliant product on the new market, we anywhere will be kind of overwhelmed in terms of market surveillance duties. It's much more complicated for market surveillance to go through an online sales platform and say, oh, we've noticed that there is one product you've sold that is not compliant. Can you please address it? Rather than saying, okay, if you introduce through your online platform a non-compliant product, you are the one responsible. Whatever you do afterward to get back on the penalties or the bad image reputation you had through this regulation is your own policy. But we need to have a responsible when online sales are performed because they are growing. And second thing, there's been a new provision that I think are worth noting about self-declaration of product. So that means if we could have product self-declaring some of their performance, it can also create a sound basis for market surveillance activities to see which product kind of report a bit strangely compared to the others or these kind of things. And I also would like to highlight the provision for the non-circumvention of the performance, basically to avoid create the diesel gate for product entering the EU market. Also, maybe it's time to consider enforcement beyond the sole work of the market surveillance authority. By this, I mean that very often the expertise to check if a product is compliant or not also exists with peer industry. Because as an industry, you may be concerned by the bad competition. That means that maybe we should join forces, I would say civil society and business, to try to identify much quicker the non-compliant product and in fact dissuade non-compliance by having immediate sanction, notably naming and shaming. And we just want to give example. We, through online platform in beauty product, we've tested 166 products in 2022. 70% of them contain illegal levels of mercury. Okay? We also tested textile, okay? And fast fashion sold by Shine often contains illegal level of dangerous chemicals. This is a Greenpeace report 2023. And these are only two examples of why this enforcement issue is really fundamental. Thank you.
Thank you. And maybe Jean-Benoît?
I'll be very short because I'm not sure it falls under the responsibility of regions, depends on the member states. Maybe the parallel we can do is with EPR regulation because the problem of free riders, like producers not complying with EPR system is very important, so maybe you could capitalize on that. I know that there will be new EPR system in Sweden, I think, and the Netherlands on textiles, and they're planning to, when you want to import and put on the market some products, then you have to have a legal representative in the country so that you can blame it, like you have someone to blame, let's say. So maybe that would be also one way to do it and see how it can develop to other type of products. But that's all I can say. Thanks.
And I would like to provide also back the floor to William for some additional points.
Yes, thanks. In fact, the two questions are rather linked, I mean, between online marketplaces and market surveillance. I think it's very important that in the discussions, in the trilogues, we give a great deal of clarity about how online marketplaces should cooperate with market surveillance. On market surveillance, there are provisions within the Commission's proposal which would oblige member states to draw up action plans for market surveillance every 2 years, including things like the nature and the number of checks, and which would allow us to actually, if there is a failure there, to adopt a delegated act to impose minimum numbers of checks and so on, if there is a clear case of under-enforcement. So we are looking to strengthen that. I'll stop there because I know that we're under time pressure.
Thank you very much. So we are approaching the end of today's event, so I would like to express my gratitude to everyone that attended the event. So speaking about panelists and also attendees here in the room and of course also online. So throughout the event, we had explored the significant role of ESPR in shaping the circular economy and reducing resource consumption within the European internal market. So we have witnesses how this regulation sets core sustainability requirements across all industries and emphasizing the importance of integrated environmental consideration in every stage of a product's life. So I would like to thank you all for joining us today. I would like also to extend a warm thank to a colleague from Innocent Drinks for their kind help in the different steps of the event organization. And as we conclude this event, I would like to carry forward the momentum gained today, so I hope we will continue the conversation soon. Thank you very much for your time, and I wish you a nice afternoon.